and tell him to lease the land to the Abraham Lincoln National Airport Commission so we can give President Obama a victory and begin to put the American people back to work. Now, I want to take just a little time, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, may I inquire as to how much time I have left?
Gentleman has 29 minutes remaining.
Oh, fantastic, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for clarifying that for me. I want to spend the next 29 minutes explaining to the American people how modern airports will be constructed in the United States. This is a mock-up of the facility that we seek to build in the 2nd Congressional District. It's a small airport with 5 simple gates whose basic footprint fits the local vernacular of the communities that it will be built in. Between the villages of Monee, University Park, Crete, Beecher, and Peatone exist 25,000 acres of land. 25,000 acres of land that has been designated by the Federal Aviation Administration for the building of a major airfield. The light area on this map represents land that has been acquired by the state of Illinois for the purposes of building a major airport. So the private companies, the private developers have done, Mr. Speaker, an analysis to determine what is the appropriate size of the airport that they should build as soon as humanly possible for the purposes of relieving air traffic in the region. And their analysis showed that if the airport were built in 2007, at the low enplanement hours or deplanement hours, 174 passengers would use the airport. The medium number of passengers per hour would be 347, or the high number of passengers, 695 passengers per hour. What's fascinating, Mr. Speaker, is the near perfect correlation between the medium numbers in 2007 and the low numbers in 2008. The medium numbers in 2008 and the low numbers in 2009. Or let's fast forward to where we are today. The medium numbers in 2010, the low numbers in 2011. The medium numbers in 2011 compared to the out numbers in 2012. What you can see is that because of the number of passengers who use the airport every hour in succeeding years, it is possible to design an airport in 25,000 acres, but actually scale it back to the size of an airport that we need to build today. In other words, a cost-effective airport. Annual enplanements by 2012, 2,200,000. 2013, 2,700,000. 2023, 7,600,000. Once, Mr. Speaker, we have determined how many passengers would use such an airport, we then have to right-size the airport. We have to determine the number of aircraft operations per hour that would have to exist at such a facility or be used at such a facility in order to determine the size of the airport that we need to build. And once again, the medium numbers equal the low numbers in each of the succeeding years. Assuming an airport is built today, 31 total aircraft operations by 2012, 34 by 2013, 38 by 2018, and so forth. A near-perfect correlation suggesting that every single year from the moment this airport is built, it will continue to expand. Well, Mr. Speaker, unlike using the old government model, because we're using a for-profit model in a public-private partnership, we should never build more airport than we need. We should never build more bridge than we need. We should never build more road than we need, because the private sector doesn't have money to waste quite like government has money apparently to waste. So we have to right-size the airport. And as a result of the passenger enplanements and the number of aircraft that take off from the airport every hour, we are able to determine the size of an airport that we need to build by 2008, 2011, 2013, and 2018. The most cost-effective airport, Greenfield Airport, starts out with 5 gates, about 1,300 parking spaces, a terminal size of about 142,000 square feet, and an apron of about 933,000 square feet. And remember, Mr. Speaker, not $1 spent by taxpayers to arrive at this jobs plan. Well, here's the key to what we're trying to build in Illinois with the governor's signature. Provided enough of our constituents today call the governor at 312-814-2121 and tell him to sign the lease to the local commission. The real key to the concept and the success of this airport, unlike traditional airport models, is the idea of a common use terminal. It's really a private sector model. Because we're not building more airport than we need. It doesn't compete with O'Hare Airport. It doesn't compete with Midway Airport. In fact, Mr. Speaker, how could a 5-gate airport compete with O'Hare Airport or compete with Midway Airport? It simply can't. However, a 5-gate airport represents 15,000 right now jobs for the local communities that need them the most. That's why Congressman Jackson is hanging around airports. Congressman, all you do is talk about airports. Yeah, because with airports come Hyatt hotels and Hilton hotels and Fairmont hotels and Avis and Hertz and Dollar and all kinds of businesses that tend to locate near airports. Look at Arlington, Virginia. It is developed because it is close to Reagan Airport. Look at the Dulles Corridor, home to 575,000 people who work every day because of the airport. Look at the Baltimore-Washington corridor. It's tied to the airport. Look at all of the jobs and growth and economic activity out by O'Hare Airport. Look at the economic activity by LAX. The FAA said 20 years ago that we need to build 10 new airports in America the size of O'Hare Airport to handle the aviation problem then. How many have we built in America? While China is going to build 100 new airports in 10 years, how many have we built in America? Not one. So, what's the key, Congressman Jackson, to this airport? Well, the reason this airport's going to be successful is because United, American, and Qantas do not own gates at this airport. This airport is not contingent upon them assuming any debt or liability for building the airport. Virgin Airlines does not own a gate at this airport. The airport is paid for, Mr. Speaker, by the private sector. American is welcome to land and use the gate for the 1 hour that it takes them to let their passengers on, let their passengers off, and get back on the runway. That's all the amount of time that we charge American, United, Qantas, or Virgin Airways. So, when you walk in this airport, it looks like a modern facility. There's a big flat-screen television set behind the ticket agent, and it has the logo of United Airlines or some airline on it. After the plane boards and then takes off, guess what, Mr. Speaker? The flat-screen television set, suddenly it has the American logo on it. The same gate as the American flight pulls up to that terminal and takes off. A much more efficient method of using gates at airports. This is the key concept behind making the airport successful. But because we are able to project well into the future in a 25,000-acre footprint, the size of a future facility, we start out with hand drawings with a 5-gate airport. But we're already contemplating what it would mean using the profits to build roads, to build the infrastructure to make the airport work. As you can see in the 10 to 25-year plan, we're contemplating a ring road, just like a modern airport, where you enter and you exit the airport, and if necessary, you return to baggage claim or to departing passengers under a much broader facility. In the plus 25-year plan, we're already widening the processor. that is the processor where ticket agents and the Transportation Security Administration help process passengers to global locations, not only within the United States, but around the world. So because of accurate forecasting, Mr. Speaker, we build a small terminal in land owned by the state with a small apron of about 933,000 square feet and one 12,000-foot runway, which is large enough to handle contemporary series aircraft, including new aircraft that are presently coming online. As you can see, we've already contemplated a small cargo space. Remember, I said I only wanted to build with $700 million, not paid for by the taxpayers. I just wanted to build 5 gates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But very quickly, for very little money, the airport expands to a 13-gate airport. But for 5 gates, I've already employed 15,000 Americans. A 13-gate airport employs 30,000 Americans. We're already focusing on Phase 2. We tear down the wall between Phase 1 and Phase 2, and now the airport, Mr. Speaker, looks like this. Then we tear down the wall, a modest expansion of the airport for Phase 3. We build Phase 4. We're contemplating Phase 5. And then while this part of the airport is functioning, we then go back to the other side of the airport and modernize its processor. Without any disruption in customer service, what started out as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-gate airport, it's now already a 40-gate airport, not paid for by the taxpayers, not paid for by the airlines, with common use gates and expanding infrastructure. Very quickly, the airport, Mr. Speaker, has now moved to a modern-looking facility, paid for by the private sector in a public-private partnership, including its roads. The roads that approach the top of the airport are for departing planes. We've already got a ring road now coming around the airport for arriving passengers. This 80-gate airport represents nearly 130,000 jobs to a local economy. There is absolutely nothing that Congress can do to compete with an airport. If there's going to be public works projects, a public works bill, we heard the President of the United States stand right there and say he refuses to accept that in America we can't build one new airport while China is building 100 new airports. I'm taking this time, Mr. Speaker, to carefully explain to my colleagues how airports can be built without you appropriating a single dollar. This is all I'm building, Mr. Speaker. 1 runway and 5 gates. But over time, following the model that I proposed, 1 runway and 5 gates quickly becomes an 80-gate airport now needing 2 gates. This 80-gate airport represents more than 130,000 jobs to a local economy, and we need to be building 10 airports just like this to alleviate today's aviation and capacity demands. And you can also see, under our airport in our field, we're already looking at an expanded cargo area for UPS, Federal Express, and other cargo-related international trade that would be the byproduct of building this port. As I shared with you at the very outset of my presentation, Mr. Speaker, that while we're building 5 gates and 1 runway, the airport is being built in a 25,000-acre footprint. O'Hare Airport is in a 7,000-acre footprint. The footprint in my congressional district is 4 times the size of the present footprint of O'Hare International Airport, which is somewhere between the busiest airport in the world, the 2nd busiest, or the 3rd busiest airport in the world. Well, when you start talking about an airport of this magnitude in a 25,000-acre footprint, you're obviously talking about a global facility. In the Midwest, it means an absolutely functioning O'Hare Airport. It means a strong and strengthened Midway Airport, but 5 gates and 1 runway will eventually become this facility. 4 runways, 200-plus gates, and massive cargo areas both north and south within the airport footprint. It's actually kind of humbling, Mr. Speaker. It's humbling to know, give me 2 of those slides back, the last 2. It's humbling to know that for 17 years I've been fighting to build without asking Congress for a single dollar. 1 runway and 5 gates in land already owned by the state of Illinois to build this 1 runway and 5 gates to create 15,000 jobs. It's humbling to know that I probably won't live to see this facility, the 25-year-plus plan. And there's almost no one in this Congress who's likely to be living to ever see this facility. But because of the size and scope and the planning of the private sector, we can already anticipate what the future of the airport will be, provided passenger forecasts and demand continue to grow. But I can scan and scale this very large facility, Mr. Speaker, all the way back to this little bitty facility that got started because President Barack Obama said we need to use public-private partnerships to build airports. Why? Because airlines can't afford them anymore, and municipalities don't build runways anymore. They simply can't afford it. And so we have a model to make it happen. What are the public sector benefits? Job creation, 15,000. Sales and income taxes from businesses and individuals who live and dwell around the facility. Off-airport real estate taxes. People who live close to these things, their property values go up. The quality of their lives go up. And with the buffer between the last runway and the nearest community being more than a mile, there's a significant noise reduction factor already built into the appropriate and proper planning of this airport. The net present value of the public-private joint venture, cash flow to participating governments, estimated at nearly $230 million annually. Now, what do you do with $230 million? Well, as I shared with you at the beginning, you see that map where the state of Illinois has purchased land, that one right there. The state of Illinois has only purchased this land, Mr. Speaker, just the light yellow land. But the entire footprint is the entire green land. Well, with $230 million of net present value and profit from the facility, which goes to the private developer and comes back to the commission in the form of rent, that money begins to purchase the remaining elements of the footprint in anticipation and with the expectation that the facility will expand. So when the private developer says it's time to expand the airport, the land has already been acquired by the government entity, again, not at a cost to the taxpayer. But every time this airport expands by another 10 gates, it creates another 15,000 jobs to a local economy. No road can do that. No bridge can do that. Mr. Speaker, may I inquire as to how much time I have left? I'm really excited about that, Mr. Speaker. 10 more minutes, I think I can talk till tomorrow. It's kind of like about these special order speeches. What's the role of the public sector? Well, it's very limited, Mr. Speaker. It's not that complicated. We're a landlord. I've been fighting for the last 7 years back home. A lot of people say, we want to be in control. Jackson, we like your ideas, we like your money, we like your developers, we want to be in control. Mr. Speaker, that's the old model. And they think like they're still participating in the old model. That's not the new model, Mr. Speaker. The only role that the public sector provides or plays in a public-private partnership is they're the landlord. That's all. Imagine this. The city of Washington, D.C. wants to attract Target, a shopping center, to its city. So it has land somewhere in Washington. The city owns the land. It might be a vacant land. It might be a dilapidated area. The city owns the land. So it says to Target, Target, we want to enter into a public-private partnership with you. We have land. You know how to run Target. If we give you the land, will you build Target? Target says yes. And for some lease fee, some arrangement between the local government and Target, Target builds its own store. Maybe a 25-year lease, maybe a 99-year lease. The only role that the government plays is in leasing the land. That's it. Unfortunately, that's not the Illinois way. That's not the Chicago way. The Chicago way is we need to be telling people who are running their business how to run their business. Can't do that. If we lease the land and Target builds the store, Target runs their own store. The business on the public land runs their own business. What do we get from it? We get taxes. We get employed Americans. We get economic activity and less crime and less violence. There's a benefit to the society when we make the trade-off in the public-private partnership where there is governance over the land, there are lease terms, but we're not in the management and the day-to-day operation of that business. Same is true of this new airport. Most public airports, the local mayor, the local city council, the local politicians are all involved in the business, trying to get their cousins hired and get their friends hired. Not in the new model. In the new model, we have the land and we turn it over to the developers to make judgments about what is the most cost-effective way to run an airport. Jackson, if you would just turn the developers over to us and let us... No. I've been working on this too long. The way to do this right is for the politicians to stay out of it and turn it over to the private sector so that they can do their job. I got to be honest with you. I ain't never ran a business before in my life. I came right from the seminary and right from law school to Congress. What kind of advice can I give an airport developer? What kind of advice can anyone who's never run an airport before give some professional who's in the airport business? Absolutely none. And so you need to have a hands-off approach to allowing a public-private partnership to operate at a profit without political interference. Land, that's your public sector role. You're a landlord. You're responsible for getting utilities to the fence. That's what you're responsible for. You're responsible for regulatory permits and approvals. That's what the public is responsible for. You're responsible for highways and transit improvements, which the public-private partnership can, in fact, help pay for, because it's a for-profit venture making a profit. So, Mr. Speaker, I've talked about the need to build a new airport. I've showed you tonight that we don't need the Congress of the United States that does not want to help Barack Obama. We don't need Congress for nothing to get this model moving. We just need the governor of the state of Illinois, Governor Pat Quinn, area code 312-814-2121, to lease the land to the governments that have established this commission. And from that, we will have a national model emerge on how to put the American people back to work. It can start in Illinois, but it can spread very quickly by bringing the $2.5 trillion in private sector money that is sitting on the sidelines and presently not engaging the economy. So, Mr. Speaker, I stripped the idea of an airport out of this model of a public-private partnership. This can be any government entity. It then enters into an intergovernmental agreement with other governments with an understanding that it will have a relationship to the federal government, the state government, or local governments in the form of land or utilities or whatever is required in order to get the business started. We then lease the land to a developer who then invests in the land to create jobs and economic opportunities for the American people. The profits from the activity are paid to the developer to help them satisfy and settle the obligations associated with the initial investment. And then the developer rents the land or pays rent to the government entity established by the local government, and the profits can also be shared by local governments. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't have to be airports. Public-private partnerships can also build roads. They may end up being toll roads, because if the private sector makes an investment in a toll road, in a road that the public is going to use, certainly they need to get their money back. So how do they get their money back? Well, after they've made the investment, it has to be a toll road. Public-private partnerships can work. Public-private partnerships can work for bridges. It may be a toll bridge. Public-private partnerships can work. And, Mr. Speaker, if we offer as a Congress the kinds of incentives that encourage public-private partnerships, we can put the American people to work in quick order. Mr. Speaker, I'm particularly honored and privileged that you've allowed me the opportunity to share with my colleagues and with the American people the importance of a project in my congressional district. I'm particularly honored that my constituents have been leading this charge for building new airports in the United States. We need to build 10 of them just like this. And I'm hoping, Mr. Speaker, that those of us who want to see and help President Barack Obama be successful, that we will call 312-814-2121 and encourage the governor of the state of Illinois to give Barack Obama the victory that he needs and the victory that he deserves, that can show us a way to put the American people to work without raising taxes, without borrowing more money, without passing another government program. Public-private partnerships, Mr. Speaker, can work. I'm asking my colleagues and those who can hear my voice to give the people of the 2nd Congressional District of Illinois a chance to get one started so we can show you that it works. I thank the Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. Does the gentleman have a motion?
Mr. Speaker, I do now move that the House adjourn for the evening.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow.
The House today passed 2 bills relating